Dear friend, in this presentation, I will briefly describe the language bridge technology that introduces active learning of English skills. Language bridge technology is protected by 3 patents, 1 issued and 2 pending in the USA and in China. LBT, Language Bridge Technology, Speak Fluent English, ebook is published as Amazon Kindle edition and could be used as a manual for teachers who decided to implement language bridge technology. In the second part of this video, I will demonstrate the Android application in which the main features of LBT are implemented. I cannot stress it enough that Android application should be considered in combination with the new pedagogy of active learning of English skills. Active learning of English skills is in sharp divergence from learning a foreign language as information to be remembered. All traditional courses belong to passive learning. Language bridge technology introduces active learning, that is subconscious training, and much faster than conscious passive learning or memorization. Both learners and teachers need to know the essence of the new pedagogy to successfully implement the Android application. Language bridge technology is a new patented method. This means that all drills and recommendations will seem new to you and will require you to adjust your learning habits. The best way to achieve your goal is to follow the instructions given in each lesson. Let me elaborate on 2 concepts: active learning versus passive learning. These terms are overused, and we should clearly define them to be on the same page. In passive learning, learners remember about 10% of what they read and only about 20% of what they hear. Passive learning splits the language into different components: reading, writing, listening, grammar, and pronunciation that you try to learn separately, as if you can use one without the others. But language skills cannot be learned like other subjects in school, any more than you can learn to play the guitar or drive a car by memorizing its instruction manual. You acquire a language by actively engaging with it until its essence, not just its rules, is familiar and natural to you. You cannot automatically use the information the teachers present. That's why passive learners may pass their tests, but they cannot communicate in their new language. Passive learners keep thinking in their native language. They translate what they hear or read into their mother tongue, formulate what they want to say, and then try to translate back into the new language. It is painful to do and listen to. Passive learners cannot think in the new language, so many refuse to try to speak in class because it is so stressful. They cannot come close to the speed of natural speech. Clarissa Dirks of Arizona State University says that the evidence is in and passive learning should be out. She points to the body of evidence that students using active learning progress better, and told Nature News, "At this point, it is unethical to teach any other way, especially if you know that active learning of English skills is much faster. Active learning helps learners start speaking the new language fluently in less than a year. In active learning, the learners takes responsibility for learning and become emotionally involved in the process. Active learning lessons engage all the senses, not just listening. This activates more areas in your brain, so you retain more of what you learn. In multisensory learning, we read, listen, and speak at the same time, using all of our senses. Learners now spend hours every day using their smartphones and tablets. We should use their digital devices to deliver the information and drills they need to actively learn their new language. Learners use the same application and the same digital files in class and when studying alone. They become engaged and emotionally connected with the material. Language Bridge technology introduces simultaneous repetition of lessons and drills that all learners wearing headsets perform at the same time. Whenever we use the term simultaneous repetition, we have in mind concurrent triple activity. In concurrent triple activity, the learner performs 3 actions at the same time. That is, simultaneously reading, listening, and speaking. So his attention is fully occupied and he or she has no time for cross-translating. Concurrent triple activity helps learners establish direct wiring between words in English and images or associations which they describe without reverting to cross-translation into the native language. We need to provide the right technology and the right pedagogy to active learning. New technology added to old pedagogy just delivers poor teaching faster and more efficiently, but not more effectively. Millennials or digital learners use their devices for hours daily and have different learning habits. Mobile devices are best in delivering the content and drills for active learning. The learner uses the same application in the class and for self-training or online study. In traditional teaching, we spend a lot of time correcting grammatical errors, but research shows that may not be effective. Instead of correcting the error, we should present an example where the grammar is correct and ask the learner to repeat the example many times with increasing speed. Through this practice, the learner takes in the proper grammatical patterns. It is the same with pronouncing the new language. Pronunciation is a skill, not a piece of knowledge. So we should provide examples with the word or phrase pronounced correctly and let the learners to repeat the example as many times as they need until they can pronounce it correctly and automatically. There is a huge difference between these two sentences. Learners spend 80% of class time actively speaking in the new language. The second phrase, each learner spends 80% of class time actively speaking in the new language. The first sentence describes passive learning. Just one person speaks at a time, and the rest of the class passively listens. The second sentence is only possible in active training of English skills by using language bridge technology approach. Language bridge technology avoids learning separate words or isolated parts of the new language. Instead, language bridge technology creates an environment for reading, listening, speaking, writing, and pronouncing in the new language, all performed at the same time. The drills present familiar situations that the learner can relate to in the new language because support in Mandarin is built in the application. Here you see a few testimonials. Much more testimonials you can find on our website www.lbtechnology.net. Hendrik: major contribution of language bridge technology and the reason for its unprecedented success. Nelly: the remarkably effective methodology unlike any other system encountered in the past. Wertheimer: language bridge technology is a stress-free environment for intuitive acquisition of the language skills. Kaplan: LBT suppresses the learner's subconscious habit of translating into or from native language. Language bridge technology Android application starts with the priming implicit memory drill. Exposing the learner to a word cloud of new words at the start of a lesson facilitates spontaneous acquisition of the lesson in the new language by priming implicit memory. The learner finds the new words somehow familiar when meeting them in the lesson and transfers them more easily to conscious memory during the concurrent triple activity of reading, listening, and speaking in the new language at the same time. Priming implicit memory is the key to the subconscious process of retention without remembering. All lessons have support in the native language organized to eliminate cross-translation. Tap on a word in the lesson and a window appears with the contextual translation in the native language. In this example, a Mandarin translation of the English word shown only for 10 seconds. Male and female voices pronounce the word. This helps form a link between the English word and the image or situation the word describes. Support in the native language, making lessons and drills understandable, ensures stress-free training. The lessons of LB technology are unified by a gradually developing plot that increases learners' emotional engagement. Learners experience the language while doing simultaneous repetition, so they can first recognize and then imitate all English phonemes and word chunks correctly. That, in turn, contributes to their native-sounding pronunciation, intonation, and fluency. Using special English, that is, reading 1/3 slower than regular speech, helps make the conversation understandable even for beginners and reduces the fear of making mistakes. Adult learners often find they cannot recognize the phonemes of the new language. For them, trying to speak or understand at normal speed can cause frustration and fear. Special English helps learners first recognize, then imitate, and finally produce English words correctly. Every lesson uses 3 types of texts. 1. Pre-recorded lessons on various topics with drills to support training language skills instead of memorizing vocabulary lists or grammar rules. 2. Lessons added by a learner or a teacher to make the lesson more relevant and immediate. The learner can work with those texts the same way as with the pre-recorded lessons, repeating the text simultaneously while listening to the text-to-voice robot read it. 3. An inspirational poem recorded by a native speaker that lets learners re-experience a familiar situation in the new language and become emotionally engaged. After multiple simultaneous repetitions of the poem, the way you learn a favorite song, the learner knows it by heart. When a learner completes the repetition without omissions or mistakes, the program suggests making a final repetition of the text, this time without listening to the recording. Language Bridge Technology Android application records the learner's reading, and the learner can share the recording by social networking or by email. The program automatically determines reading fluency and gives recommendations on improving reading skills. Language Bridge Technology teaches through a no grammar, no memorization approach that activates the left and right brain simultaneously and restores the innate human ability to actively learning of English skills. This brain-compatible learning approach matches the habits of digital learners who prefer self-teaching and social networking while learning. Controls and functionality explained in English and in Mandarin. Supports self-training of English skills and guided instruction. Learners enjoy the application due to its versatility and ease of use. Competitive advantage due to learner success rate and simplicity of the practice of active training. Learners acquire the patterns of the new language and its intuitive grammar using the self-training application that easily becomes part of a digital learner's everyday routine. The application integrates a direct connection to the social networking that most learners use daily. To this day, some of the most modern and advanced Asian societies use some form of simultaneous repetition as the basis for a great deal of learning. It should not be surprising that Language Bridge Technology has some definitive competitive advantages over other methods, since it makes full use of the considerable benefits presented by simultaneous repetition and the whole Language Bridge Technology training process that results in subconscious active training of English skills. The learners test themselves after they complete each lesson by putting on earphones and saying a few sentences relating to the word that drops down randomly from the word cloud. The learner continues testing for at least 20 words before starting work on the next lesson. The built-in reading and speaking fluency tests, along with testing of active vocabulary, provide gamification elements that younger learners are accustomed to from the games they play on their devices for hours. This drill helps learners develop the habit of automatic speech by thinking directly in English. The language bridge technology testing software and the method behind it are very important throughout the process of acquiring the language. Passing test after test strengthens students' faith in the method and gives them a positive feeling of success. Language bridge technology is patent pending in China with the filing priority date of 2013. Summary: active versus passive learning. If a learner performs one or two actions, he does conscious passive learning. If a learner performs 3 or more actions, he does subconscious active learning. Traditional classroom is an example of passive learning. You would be surprised that video lessons represent passive learning because learners only watch and listen. Language Bridge Technology Android application is the first application for active learning of English skills. Teachers and learners can add lessons that build bridges between the LBT program and the current curriculum. Learners can add favorite texts to the program and use them for simultaneous repetition and training automatic speech. This Android application delivers altogether 93 lessons now, with more on the way. Considering the success rate gains, the cost of the program, even including training teachers and retraining, providing Android devices for students who do not have them is well worth it. Thank you. If you have any questions, send them to our email info@lbtechnology.net.